So the business model canvas is something that was developed out of the framework of lean startup methodology, which basically is in tune with today's fast-paced world, where we really need to be very adaptive in how we model, how we go to market, how do we develop our business. And we need to be able to quickly assess, change, identify areas that we need to get into, because the market is changing, right? The market is moving quite fast, isn't it? So who remembers Kodak? In my times, I'm a photographer, so Kodak was like the biggest brand I would ever come across. They filed for bankruptcy a couple of years ago. They're still struggling to get out of it because they weren't able to change fast enough and to accommodate this disruptive technology that came about, which is digital photography. Who remembers BlackBerry? So that's I hope no one gets it across to BlackBerry. They're our friends. But imagine, just 2 or 3 years ago, BlackBerry was the dominant player when it came to smartphones in the region specifically. And they've been you probably heard the news, they've been just bought by their shareholders. So this really puts a lot of emphasis on the need to be very adaptive, the need to be able to change quickly, and the need to be very focused and light on our operations as an organization. So the business model canvas has been developed in a way where it summarizes any business in 9 building blocks. And we're going to give you, there's a website which has a lot of information about it, and everything we're talking about today is not going to be, there's nothing, you could see a lot of it on the website. But what I wanted to do with you today is go through the different segments of the business model canvas. We want, like we said, to brainstorm. We want you to work on it, discuss in your teams, on your tables, and for us to learn from each other. So you're going to go through this. We'll go through each step by itself. And what we're doing along the way is trying to come up with an ideal business model for you. How long would this ideal business model probably last? A year or 2? In the first iteration, it's probably going to last a few minutes because you can adapt it again. The idea is you can come up with many different business models because there's no perfect solution. There's no really right or wrong solution. You need to just keep on experimenting with what could be the best business model. So even though we're going to come up with one today, and probably some iterations of it, hopefully, but by tomorrow, by the day after, you need to keep on revisiting it and seeing how can we adapt something differently. How can we add a new element here? What if we try this kind of pricing model? What if we try to focus on this target segment instead of some other target segment? How can you be more in tune with what is needed in the market today? And you're going to find that even after several iterations, you're going to come to a perfect model, which is probably a little bit outside of what you were initially thinking about. But the beauty about the business model is that it's a very simple way for us to see all of our business and to be able to adapt and to try different models. In the past, we had to really probably come up with a different strategy, start to do some experimentation with customers, go out there, try something, and then learn from that, which could be a couple of months process or maybe sometimes a couple of years. Whereas now, by being able to use something like the business model, you're able to, within a couple of days, identify which could be the perfect model for you over the coming period, and then you start executing it. Okay, sounds good? All right. So we're going to be talking about several examples from big companies like Facebook, Skype, Gillette, LinkedIn, some of the companies that we all know and are working with. But what we also wanted to do is to bring home the discussion that even a business model canvas can be applied to very traditional businesses. And there could be innovation in very traditional businesses. And we need to just, try to, discuss those. And I think the discussion, and these are different characters we're going to have along the way, Ahmad, Kumar, Saeed, Zaina, and someone else, who will be going through over the coming couple of hours and building business models for them, which I hope will give us an idea of how to implement that business model in our own organization. So we've chosen a couple of different industries so that we try to cover a broad spectrum of industries, and hopefully it'll give us more and more insight. So we're going to start with the first building block, which is customer segment. And I really need you to do some work. So this is a workshop. So we really need to do some work. So I want you to pick up your business model canvas and to write over there, what's the customer segment that you're really focusing on? So Patrick talked about this in his presentation a bit to identify. But I want to hear and I want to see from you, which specific customer segment are you going after? And we'd love to have some interaction. So anyone who's already got it in mind or has noted it down, please raise your hand so I can give you the mic and you can tell us what is the business segment you're going after. So this is the end user who's going to buy from you, or a user who's not buying from you but is using your services and someone else is buying. So that's a good question, because later on you're going to see in the revenue models there are different ways to approach it. So it could be the segment you're going after is someone who has a need that you're fulfilling through your services. And they could be paying you directly for that, or they could be using it and you find other ways of them paying you. So who would like to share? If you tell us a bit quickly about your business and what is the customer segment you're going after?
Yes, our customer segment is a very niche market, and we are mainly catering to the people who are associated mainly with sea activities.
With?
With sea, at the seaports.
Oh, okay.
Seaports.
So what kind of activities at the seaport?
We have retail operations at the seaports.
So can you tell us about your business? Retail operations in the seaport. So what do you do exactly?
We sell duty-free products at the seaports.
Okay. So now you see, even when we first positioned it, anyone who's working with seaports, that's even though it's a niche market, but the way you position it is quite wide. So you need to segment it more. Who specifically has a need for your services?
The people working on ships, technical people, cargo people, captains, cruise passengers. So as I said, associated with sea activities. So anyone who's associated with sea activities can be, where would they buy your products and services? And what would be the need that you're serving? Their need would be like day-to-day requirements. Their needs could be gift items for their families because they're on the sea for like 6 to 8 months. Their needs could be immediate electronic devices. Okay, so anyone who's working on offshore, right, or goes on, so even rigs, oil rigs, exactly, right? Yes. They could also be so you could position that segmentation in a clearer way to say, anyone who's on, in the sea for X amount of time, how much approximately? 3 to 6 months. Okay, so see how it's being more and more segmented? Right. So the more you can segment your target audience, so thanks a lot for that input, but then you could see that's the kind of discussion we need to go into. How much can you really zoom into the target segment that will benefit the most from what you have to offer? So if you've got fishermen, are they who go out on a daily basis, do you use their services as much? Yes, because we also supply fishing items. Fishing items, okay. So that's where you need to then define what groups of segments do you have. So the fisherman segment, you're offering them something which is a bit different from the other people you're talking about. True. Right? Yes. So these would be two different customer segments you're going after because you're approaching them differently. Now what this helps you with as you go into this details of the customer segment is it helps you to identify who out of these customer segments has the biggest need and I'm solving the biggest problem for them. Because one of the hardest things to do is to get to your customer target segment, right? Is it cheap going and doing advertising? No. It's
It's much better these days with online advertising, but when you do online advertising, you need to be very specific in who you want to target. Right? So for us to get to our customers, that's an expensive task. And the more broad our customer base, the more expensive it will be. The more broad our customer base, the less of an impact we can have on that big community. The more we zoom in to a specific segment or a specific couple of segments, the more we would know how to reach them, the cheaper it would be for us to reach them, and to be able to convince them of what we have to offer.